Hello everyone, welcome back to the Hindu Explainer series. I am Kushagra Goel. And sincere apologies from our side regarding not uploading the video yesterday, but it was because of some medical attention that I needed, and therefore we had to postpone it for today. Alright, so we'll upload that also, and I'll be taking the doubts from 3rd April in that video. Alright, so on that note, let's begin with today's newspaper. So the one big news that has been part of the national narrative for the past 2 days is the clash between the Naxals and the central forces in Chhattisgarh. If you have been following the news for the past 3-4 months, there have been multiple updates about how the overall influence of Naxals in the area or districts affected by the violence of Naxalism has been steadily declining for the past decade or so, and they have shrunk to the bare minimum. It has this that has led to frustration and led to this clash. All right, so as this chief minister from Chhattisgarh also pointed out that there are few takers for Naxalism now. All right, so that what this puts into forefront is this entire concept of Naxalism and the dispute regarding this. All right, so a little bit of background knowledge of this is something that becomes relevant. Naxalism is a footshoot from those who believe that, see, overall society has been unable to take care of the interest of the Adivasi groups and the scheduled tribes, and therefore they need to take an armed rebellion against the state to protect their rights. However, we know that this is far from true, and it is the government who has been trying to provide services. For example, one of the major targets of Naxals is always infrastructure that connects the tribal areas to the main forefront of the society, and also schools. Schools are the biggest threat to the Naxal movement and the Naxal violence, and therefore they become the primary target. And as forces have been, and the Naxalism itself has been reducing, they have become frustrated, and it is this that had now come out in front, and almost 22 soldiers have been martyred in the attack, plus one of them is also missing. So we need to wait for the updates about this. However, a little bit of overall knowledge of this entire dispute becomes important. All right, and in light of that also, yesterday India reported 1 lakh cases on a new day of COVID-19. That is the highest in comparison to also the first wave of coronavirus. And it is therefore now Prime Minister is about to chair meetings. And also secondly is the Sputnik 5 vaccine. So Sputnik 5 vaccine, we had done an in-depth analysis of that in the month of April, in the month of November and December. I will provide the link to that in the description box today. Make sure you revise yourself about the Sputnik 5 vaccine. Now, why is Sputnik 5 vaccine important suddenly? Is because it is also able to maintain itself at the same room temperature and fits the billing of our cold storage facilities. Secondly, as overall there is a crunch of vaccines, or we need to vaccinate far more people at a faster pace to prevent the spread of the disease. Therefore, a new vaccine candidate would only assist our fight against the COVID-19. All right. So in that note, apart from that, on the front page, nothing of real note. So the first squadron of Rafale jets will probably be complete by the mid-May. All right, and we will be receiving the other. So a squadron approximately of 18 aircrafts of the Rafale will be completed. We have been doing multiple in-depth analysis of the Rafale aircraft, what is new about this, what is the history of it, and what is the history of the first squadron of the Rafale jet itself. So make sure you revise that. Both these links will be in the description box. Make sure you do a revision of it today itself. All right. On that note, moving on the national news, nothing of real note for us. So turning to the editorial front. So on the editorial page on the left hand side, a walk back. What is this about? This is about Joe Biden not renewing the H-1B visa ban that Donald Trump had imposed in the United States. Now, US economy has also been undergoing a slowdown, and Joe Biden believes that, see, you cannot restrict. What you need to do, rather than restricting the jobs that are already present, is actually create more, have a larger pool. And it is in this light that the ban on H-1B visa has not been extended by the Biden administration. And overall, that this is good news, especially for India, because last time when the last applications for H-1B visa were opened up, 70% of those visas went to Indians. So therefore, for those Indians looking for better opportunity or work experience or better income outside their own country, the H-1B visa is the gateway to that. And therefore, it is a primary issue between US-India relationship also. All right. So on that note, the second one, a good start. The fund support from government is vital for continuous treatment of those with rare diseases. So government has recently come up with its policy for rare diseases 2021. Now what becomes, or how do you classify rare diseases? All right. So first of all, WHO defines rare diseases as having a frequency of less than 6.5 to 10 per 1,000 people, and then there is an estimate of approximately 7,000 known rare diseases with approximately 300 million people infected by them. India shares one of the largest burden of people with rare diseases, and that is 70 million. Out of 300 million, almost 1/3 of such patients are in India itself. All right. So therefore, why is this policy important? Because this provides for partial government funding for certain rare diseases. Partial also permits for crowdfunding for those who want to raise funds for these rare diseases. Mostly rare diseases are those for which treatment is not available, for or they are perennial, chronic, that is, they'll happen over the lifetime. All right. So therefore, they are part of the rare disease bracket. Now, why is health a little important from CLAT 2021? Because we are in the middle of a pandemic. So anything related to health policies or health in general becomes important. It should be part of your overall one topic in current affairs regarding healthcare. All right. So how India pursues healthcare, what is India's policy regarding different diseases, is something that cannot be discounted, as it is one of the major topic throughout the year. Because we are in the middle of a pandemic, healthcare becomes one of the most important topics for current affairs. All right. Then the other two main editorials, the first one going beyond Tamil Nadu's freebies narrative. This is analyzing the different manifestos of different parties, how they affect different strata of population. Tamil Nadu's manifestos or the assembly election in Tamil Nadu have brought in forefront the monetary support for those women who share the household burden. That monetary support, or recognizing the monetary value of household work, that is one big takeaway from the assembly elections of Tamil Nadu. Another big one from them is also about sustainable development. That is looking out for, instead of the big industries, actually looking out for those who are at the receiving end of climate change. So the second one on the op-ed page talks about that in Tamil Nadu, environment is good politics. For those who actually want to garner votes, talking about the risk that climate change provides and how are you going to curb that becomes important. All right. So therefore, climate change is something that is a very relevant topic for current affairs, therefore cannot be discounted. All right. The second one here, Kerala model at the crossroads. Now this is about analyzing the overall development infrastructure of Kerala, how it went from its overall situation of per capita income that was less than the national average to now 65% higher than the national average of per capita income. That how focusing on infrastructure, using mechanism of government plus public sectors, public-private partnership to overall enhance the environment, infrastructure of the overall state, and to sustain higher growth for a longer time period. All right. So this is a critique of that. Once again, this is regarding policy narrative, so not relevant. Then on the left-hand side, seeing things as they are, one big takeaway from this is that Election Commission, which has the constitutional responsibility in India to conduct free and fair elections, should not only be seen to be not only be doing free and fair elections, but also been seen to do that. Why is this in highlight? Because recently in Assam, EVMs were found in the vehicle of a party's candidate. Along with that, not only did the Election Commission not do a robust inquiry into that, secondly, there have been bipartisanship on the Election Commission side. That at one point, one leader from one party was given a 48-hour ban, but the other's ban was reduced from 48 to 24 hours. So what this highlights is, one, the constitutional responsibility of Election Commission. Under Article 326, the Election Commission is supposed to be conducting superintendence over elections in India. And only when we have free and fair elections can a democracy strive in the country. So even though assembly elections of the politics aside, the constitutional narrative regarding that becomes important for you all to be in the know-how of, all right? Then on this, a roadmap for tolerance. This is countering racism, that racism in any form, anywhere should be countered, should be highlighted and told that why this is not acceptable in the society. All right, so this editorial, open-ed, is by United Nations calling out the racism. So what you need to do on a daily basis is call out casual racism of anyone. And recently, racism is also been linked to casteism, that how casteism and racism are more or less the same thing, where you believe by your birth or your skin color or whatever, you believe you are superior to another, all right? So that is what needs to be called out and action should be taken. But most importantly, one of the major things that needs to be seen is from the data point, all right? The data point talks about the gender disparity. The gender disparity based on what? The Global Gender Gap Report of 2021. Who brings out the Global Gender Gap Report? The World Economic Forum, all right? And in 2021 report, India has slipped by 28 spots to now be on 148th rank on the index, all right? That out of 156 countries that were analyzed, India is 140th. The fall has been steep in terms of gender disparity in India. Now, what all needs to be understood is the parameters of the index. What are the parameters of the index? Economic participation and opportunity. So, for example, how many women are actually directors in registered companies of India? How many CEOs do we have who are women? All right. What is the percentage of women workforce in the economy? So all those things, how many women actually need to drop out of their economic jobs once they get married, once they have a child? So is the economic system robust enough to sustain a woman while being a mother to also pursue her economic interests? So that is economic participation and opportunity. The second is educational attainment. It is in enrollment of children or the girl child that India scores high. But apart from that, dropout rates are high. The number of girl students in STEM courses, that is science, technology and management courses, the percentage of women is low. The number of PhDs issued to women is low in India. And the overall level of how many years a girl child spends in schooling in comparison to a boy child is far high. The gap is far high. Other things, health and survival, for example, infant mortality rate, number of female feticides, sex ratio in the society. And the last one is political empowerment. It is on political empowerment that we have a higher score. Why? By virtue of us having adult suffrage. But in that regard also, how many do we have equality in number of female cabinet ministers? How many women CMs do we actually have? How many women ministers do we have across the country? Women have 50% of the population, but how many of them are in the leadership role, even in political participation? Yes, they have the right to vote. So that gives India a high score. But how many of them are actually in the position of power? How many in recently, for past 40 years, India has not had a women prime minister. All right, so does that mean that women are not good enough leaders? Definitely not. But is there a pathway for them to become prime ministers or have higher positions? That is what needs to be seen. All right, so those 4 parameters of gender equality become important, and the overall score of India, which has seen a steep fall from 0.683 to 0.625. All right, so that is the fall of India overall. All right, then moving to the other national news. On the other national news, campaigning has ended in multiple states, Tamil Nadu, Pondicherry and Assam, and at the same time we are also this is more about the political news. All right, but then there is update about political will that needs to be there for joint efforts on disengagement at the border between India and China. Don't lose sight of India-China border dispute. Doesn't mean that it has not been at the forefront for the past 1 month or so. You forget or lose sight of this. All right, so this is still very much important as a topic for current affairs. Just doesn't mean it has not been in the forefront of headlines for the past 1 month. All right, the threat of this becoming violent is humongous. All right, then moving on the international news. On the international news, a new crisis is probably brewing in Jordan, a country on the eastern side of Israel, south of Syria is Jordan. And in Jordan, the crown prince, Prince Hamza, has been placed under house arrest. Other associates of him have also been arrested, 16 of them. What is the history of him? He was supposed to take over as the crown prince there, but in 2004, he was removed from his position and has been stripped of his titles. Recently, he had been in news while he was criticizing the government in power in Jordan for corruption, for favoritism, and overall rising plight of the people, and that the administration needs to be changed. Now, on pretext of him or his criticism, whether correct or not, the question is, he has now been placed under house arrest. What is the ground? That he was hatching a foreign conspiracy to bring down the government of Jordan. It is on this ground that he has now been placed under house arrest. So this is now an ongoing story about how this unfolds, what it leads to. The Western countries or the overall council, the neighboring countries are still in favor of the incumbent government in Jordan. All right, so Jordan has allies in the Western countries, that is UK, US, and the neighboring countries. All right, so they are with the incumbent. So it needs to be seen how serious the crisis develops. Does it develop into a crisis or not? Then Easter eggs and a show of defiance. This is Myanmar carrying on protest against the junta and the military takeover. All right, then apart from that, news from Pakistan about arrest of further 5 aides of Hafiz Saeed regarding anti-terrorism case, but also at the same time shows the risk of taking action against terrorists in Pakistan. A judge and along with his wife and 2 grandchildren have been shot dead in Pakistan. He was a judge for the anti-terrorism court itself, on which, so this shows that how peace is fragile and taking actions against terrorists in Pakistan is such a difficult task. All right, then overall, apart from that, on the space front, this week is exciting. How is it exciting? That hopefully NASA will be able to conduct the first flight on another terrestrial planet in our solar system. That is, when the Perseverance was launched, along with Perseverance was Ingenuity. Ingenuity is a helicopter and was supposed to do test flights on the Martian surface. Now he has separated from Perseverance and will start his batteries to prepare for the first flight by a object created by humans from Earth on another terrestrial planet. So therefore, space technology and Martian missions is something that is equally important. We have discussed all 3 missions that were launched this year: Hope, Perseverance, and Taiwan by China, and it is this one that is on the forefront about the first flight, all right? So we need to be wait how this story develops across the week. Based on the weather there, they will determine which will be the date on which they will activate the copter to see whether flight is possible or not, all right? Then moving on the economic and sporting front, more anticipation about the Indian Premier League, and that is it for us today, all right? Sunday and Monday is usually news with less content, and it also is a chance for you all to revise. Therefore, in today's news, one thing that you need to make yourself aware about is firstly Sputnik 5 vaccine. What is the vaccine? We have done an in-depth analysis of that. The room temperature, whom is creating it, which is the pharmaceutical company of India, which is doing the trials, and why the vaccine was not approved. Dr. Reddy, the Indian pharmaceutical company, is doing it. They were asked to submit further data about approval of the vaccine. So that is what had been holding back the vaccine. Approval of a Russian vaccine in India above vaccines from US will also have foreign policy implications, will ensure India's ongoing relationship with Russia is still intact, and that India, just because it has become a member of Quad, is not anti-Russia in general. So that is what needs to be seen. Overall, these events do have foreign policy implications too, all right? Apart from that, make yourself abreast with the Naxalism issue, what it is, and if you have any doubts regarding that, put it in the comment section, all right? So national news, this is the two things. And on international front, the Global Gender Gap Report 2021, the 4 parameters, India's ranking, and the fall of India's ranking in general. So that becomes important. That is it for the day. Take care of yourself. Cases are rising. Stay indoors unless important. On that note, thank you so much and see you all tomorrow.